The New York Islanders get their preseason started on the right foot with a 4-2 win over the New Jersey Devils. We'll break down the players who look good, those that looked a little shaky, and we'll update Maxim Tsyplakov's first unofficial NHL game. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. A solid start, top to bottom, for the New York Islanders in their first preseason game. They defeat the New Jersey Devils by a score of 4-2. And, you know, a lot of positives come out of this game. Was it perfect? No, of course not. No game is, especially a first preseason game. But I have to say that the positives in this one far outweighed the negatives. And, you know, they fell behind quickly. The first 2 minutes and 18 seconds, the Islanders fall behind. Adam Pelech takes a penalty just 29 seconds into the game. And, oh no, here we go again. Nico Hischier scores, and it's 1-0 Devils on a power play goal. And, you know, all of a sudden, we're all thinking the same thing. Here we go again. Not a good start. The penalty kill isn't doing anything different, so that's obviously a negative. And, oh, by the way, on the goal, Maxim Tsyplakov, the big new addition from Russia, he had a giveaway that ends up leading to the goal. And all of a sudden, you know, on Islanders' social media, you know, the boo birds, so to speak, are out. But I have to say that the Islanders rebounded well after that. And for Maxim Tsyplakov, who I think a lot of people wanted to see, you know, you hear so much about the kid, but you don't know what he's like until you see him on the ice in an NHL game. Okay, an NHL preseason game, but an NHL game nonetheless. And I'll tell you something. The kid looked pretty darn good out there. And, you know, he was on the ice for 12 minutes, 21 seconds. He had a really beautiful assist on the goal by Julien Gauthier. He had an open ice hit that was very, very impressive. He ends up the game with one shot on goal, one hit, one takeaway. He was credited with 3 giveaways. Obviously, one of them resulted in the first goal. It's not that there aren't things he had to work on, but what you saw was a guy with size, a guy who wasn't afraid to go to the net, a player who was able to make some rather nice passes, who you get the feeling can win some battles along the boards. Overall, for a first appearance in an NHL game, I have to say I liked what I saw from Maxim Tsyplakov. The other thing that I have to say that I liked was that the Islanders as a team did a really nice job of shutting down the Devils in the second half of the game. So Marcus Hogberg, he plays the first 29 minutes and 22 seconds. And, Hogberg looked okay. Not going to say he looked awful. Not going to say he was a world beater out there. Had to make some big saves and made more of them than he didn't. Even though the .882 save percentage, 15 saves out of 17 shots, not outstanding, but, can't blame him on that first goal on the power play. And the Jesper Bratt goal, again, not like a really weak goal to give up. But after the second half of the game, in the second half of the game, when Jakub Skarek took over, the last 30 minutes and 38 seconds of the game, the New York Islanders only allowed the Devils 8 shots on goal. And look, Jakub Skarek didn't allow a goal in those 8 shots. He gets credit for the win, but he wasn't tested hardly at all. And I'm not saying that to downplay the effectiveness of Skarek in this game. He did everything that you want him to do. But the important thing, in my mind, is that the defense stepped up and shut down a speedy, talented New Jersey Devils team. And that's what you wanted to see. That here is an Islanders team that last year had so much trouble holding a lead. How long did it take the Islanders to get an empty net goal? I know it was after the new year. So overall, you just got to be really happy with the way the team shut down the Devils in the second half of the game. And look, the goal scorers, Julien Gauthier, I think played a really good game, used his speed well, made some good plays, set up some shots. He had 3 shots on goal in this game, which tied him for the lead with Kyle Palmieri, J.G. Pageau, and Matthew Maggio. Now, Gauthier had a goal. Maggio, 3 shots. He had 2 giveaways. So, again, the giveaways, you kind of worry about that a little bit. But 3 shots in 10 minutes and 18 seconds. Again, going to the net, making plays. You like seeing that kind of hockey. I'm not saying Matthew Maggio is ready for the NHL, but he definitely took a step forward from what we saw from him a year ago. And that's what you really want to see in the first preseason game, that a young prospect like Maggio just took a step forward and did his job. Cam Thiesing scoring a goal on his only shot. Good to see that. Is he making the team? I doubt it, but solid effort on his part. Simon Holmstrom with the empty net goal. That was a positive. And how about Anders Lee? 18 minutes, 20 seconds of ice time, scores on one of his 2 shots. Gotta love that. And here is maybe the most overlooked stat that I loved from this game. Kyle McLean. Okay, he had an assist. That's always good. 8 out of 10 face-off wins for Kyle McLean. And last year, what did he win? 42% of his draws. And in this game, you see Kyle McLean, who said he's watching his teammates. He's watching the J.G. Pageaus and the Brock Nelsons and more the Bo Horvats, because Pageau and Horvat and Cizikas, those are 3 guys who are really strong on the power play. So, here's Kyle McLean basically saying, I'm watching these guys to see the little things that they do that help them win faceoffs. And, okay, again, preseason game 1, not losing any sleep over preseason game 1. But to have him win 8 out of 10 draws is definitely a good sign for McLean, and thereby a good sign for the New York Islanders. Guys who I think needed a little work and maybe were a little shaky in this game. Dennis Cholowski out there for 24 minutes of ice time, but 5 giveaways in this game. That is, a little too much. And again, am I worried about Cholowski? No, I'm not. But is 5 giveaways, what you want to see? No, definitely not. I love the fact that the Islanders as a team only gave up 4 shots on goal in the third period. I just think that ability to close things down, which they lacked so much, was great to see. So some really positive signs in this game. Again, if the Islanders lost 8-0 or if they won 8-0, it's still preseason game 1. You're not going to lose any sleep or go crazy about preseason game 1 as far as, you're not going to win the Stanley Cup and the sky is not falling. But I think the positives in this game far outweighed the negatives, and that is the most encouraging thing to see from the New York Islanders in game 1. You go on the road against a division rival. You have a nice mix of prospects and younger guys along with veterans. You play overall a solid game. The first penalty kill, didn't work. The second one was better. And they even had a shorthanded opportunity. Overall, I will take this as a solid first effort for the New York Islanders, for Maxim Tsyplakov as well. And it's just great to see Islanders hockey back on the ice. It's, been way too long since the Islanders were eliminated by the Carolina Hurricanes. So back on the ice, back in the win column. Some of the young kids looking good. Overall, very happy to see the Islanders do what they just did. And Islanders hockey is back. We've got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will talk a little bit about some more news from training camp, including what the Islanders are working on the PK, because we all know how bad that penalty kill was. Oh, yes, for our Islanders birthday of the day, this is a hard one. Anyone who guesses this one before the reveal going to get bonus points in my book, because this player only played 10 games with the Islanders. It's a Czech defenseman who was with the Islanders for 94-95 and 95-96, played 10 games for the Isles, but had 4 assists in those 10 games. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at PrizePicks. And look, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get the money in as quick as 15 minutes. And PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So, download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So the Islanders looking good after one preseason game. And again, you sort of take it with a grain of salt as it is one preseason game. But it is good to see this team back on the ice and playing. And, it's important. That's all I'm going to say. That the Islanders went out there and just played a more disciplined game under Patrick Roy. And so much of what we've talked about is, doing the little things right. And for a lot of this game, what we did not see was, players backed up in their own zone, can't get out, can't clear the puck, can't get going. All of that wasn't happening. And that, again, not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but a much better way of playing. That this team just looked smarter out there. And that's what you need to see. That's what you need to see on the ice, is the team playing smarter, more efficient hockey. And again, it's a preseason game. So I'm not going to go crazy about how wonderful, this means they're going to win a Stanley Cup. No, it doesn't. But it also is a step forward. And that is what we needed to see from this team in this game. That some of the kids look good, the Maggios, the Tsyplakovs. I mean, here was a quote by Bo Horvat on Maxim Tsyplakov after a scrimmage over the weekend. He just makes a lot of good little plays out there. He's not going to wow you or anything with his speed, but he just makes smart plays. And he made a lot of really good plays. We had a lot of give and goes and some pretty good chemistry out there on the first day. And he's just going to keep getting better. And that's the key. He can keep on getting better. Seeing Simon Holmstrom play a solid game, a step forward. Oliver Wahlstrom had an assist. That's a step forward. These are the little incremental things, because let's face it, there was no Anthony Duclair, there was no Bo Horvat, there was no Matthew Barzal in this game, okay? But in order to improve this year, this team is going to need to know what to do. Play smarter. The talent, with the exception of Tsyplakov and Duclair, is more or less the same. So a smarter, more prepared, more efficient team that goes to the goal, that shoots first. We saw this team shooting more. Now, look, did they have 40 shots on goal? No, not even close. But when they had the chance, they went to the net, maybe with the exception of the possible empty net goal that Kyle Palmieri passed on. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm sure Patrick Roy will address it with Palms, when they watch the game film. But doing these little things right and improving in these areas, that's what you need to see from your team in preseason. And we saw it against the Devils, and that is very, very encouraging from the New York Islanders. Just doing the little things you need to do the right way and playing the kind of game that this team needs to play. And the Devils are one of those teams, let's face it, that the Islanders will be fighting for one of those playoff spots in both the Metropolitan Division and the Eastern Conference. So winning is encouraging. Playing a smarter game is encouraging. And as far as, Hogberg is concerned, again, we don't know how long Ilya Sorokin is going to be out. So if we don't know how long he's going to be out, and Hogberg is the leading contender to start the season as the backup goalie behind Semyon Varlamov, he at least proved in this game that he's capable of doing that. Was he outstanding? No. But was he capable? Yes. If he needs to play early in the season, it won't be a lot of games, but can he give you a game or two and hold his own, especially if the team plays smart defense in front of him? The early returns, and again, one preseason game, but he at least looked capable. And if you compare it to the lack of confidence that Patrick Waugh and Lou Lamoriello had last year in Ken Appleby, in Jakub Skarek, this is a step forward. And that, especially with Sorokin maybe not being ready right away, is a positive sign. So more positives than negatives in this game, and the season getting off to a solid start. So let's hope that the Islanders are able to continue to keep playing smart hockey, and we'll see how it works out next game in a couple of days against the New York Rangers. And of course, we'll have it all covered for you here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. When we come back, more to get to. Penalty kill killed the Islanders last year. They're working on it, something they didn't do in training camp last year. We're going to talk about that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you could check out the latest stats, view live, play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And there's so much to bet on this time of year. Baseball, the season is winding up. You got the playoffs right around the corner. College football, pro football in full swing right now. Preseason hockey going on, and hockey futures. You could check out the odds on the Islanders making the playoffs, or maybe on Ilya Sorokin winning the Vezina, or Noah Dobson winning the Calder. Head on over to FanDuel and check out the odds right now. So get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find Locked On NHL, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So one thing that made me very happy was learning that the Islanders have been working on their penalty kill. Hallelujah. It blew my mind that last year under Lane Lambert, the Islanders, A, did not practice special teams much, if at all, in training camp, and B, just failed to make adjustments to the way they killed penalties, even though they were dead last in the league last year and were not just bad, but historically bad. Now you have Tommy Albelin in there, and Albelin is going to be more aggressive on the PK than Doug Huda, who was his predecessor, was. It's more of an aggressive system, similar to what we saw under Barry Trotz. And that is good. And it really is not sitting back so much like they did a year ago and just getting to the player with the puck. Here's what Patrick Waugh had to say about practicing the PK. We watched clips from a couple of years ago. The team was doing really well on the flush, so we're going back to that. It was part of what Tommy Albelin wanted to do. He wanted us to be a flush team. That's the structure he wanted to use. That's what this team was doing a couple of years ago when they had one of the better penalty kills in the league. So the flush is a system that you take a more indirect route to potential shooters on the flank and kind of force them to use their backhand, and you prevent a quick pass to the other defenseman on the blue line. And it's more pressure. It forces the opposition, the power play, to be faster. And right now, it looks like the personnel will be Casey Cizikas and J.G. Pageau, Kyle McLean now probably stepping in along with up on the power play now that Cal Clutterbuck is not going to be back. So it looks like we're going to see Kyle McLean stepping in for Cal Clutterbuck. That is good. Probably Simon Holmstrom joining McLean, Cizikas, and Pageau. Scott Mayfield back on the PK if he's healthy. Hopefully that will be a plus. But overall, finally practicing the PK, which just sounds like hockey 101, and being more aggressive on the PK instead of passive. Again, early in the preseason, early in training camp, positive developments though. Now you have to go out and be better consistently, but at least the effort and the idea is all in the right place. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And I mentioned this was a hard one, a very hard one, because we're talking about a player who only played a handful of games, 10 games over parts of 2 seasons with the New York Islanders. He was a defenseman, 6'3", 200, a native of Czechia, then the Czech Republic, and drafted by the Blackhawks in the 8th round in 1989. I'm talking about Milan Tichy, and he made his NHL debut with the Blackhawks in 92-93, joined the Islanders for 94-95, played 2 games then, and then 8 games in 95-96, had 4 assists in those 8 games, was a +3, and had 8 penalty minutes. So here was a big, rugged guy who played well in limited time with the Islanders. His best game as an Islander, how about December 23rd, 1995? Islanders hosting the Capitals at the old barn. Olaf Kolzig, the goalie for the Caps. Tommy Soderstrom for the Islanders. Islanders in the original fisherman jerseys. And with the Islanders up by a score of 1-0 on a goal by Derek King, Pat Peake ties it on the power play for the Capitals. And then late in the second period, our Islanders birthday of the day, Milan Tichy sets up Travis Green with his 10th goal of the year. Ziggy Palffy, the other assist. That made it 2-1 Islanders. Travis Green scores again in the third on the power play. Islanders beat the Capitals by a score of 3-1. 21 saves for Tommy Soderstrom. But for Milan Tichy, our Islanders birthday of the day, he has the assist. He is a +2. And he assists on the game-winning goal. So Milan Tichy, only briefly an Islander, but 4 assists in 10 games. Not bad for a defenseman, not even terrible for a forward. Milan Tichy is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We'll have all the latest news, notes, and happenings from Islanders camp. Plus, we'll look ahead to the next game, which is Tuesday at Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. So we will talk a little bit about that and some of the players who may play in that game as soon as we hear anything. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.